and boom goes the dynamite.
It is time for the Daily Dive, your only Monday through Friday live lacrosse talk show. I am your host, Michael Karvelis. On today's show, our top story will be the disaster that was the NLL trade deadline for 2023. Or was it? Our big guest by Fanatics will be Cody Janzen of the Saskatchewan Rush. The team that actually did make a splash at the deadline. Is the splash enough? And what happened in Calgary? Our last brew by B-Res Coffee Company will be the exact numbers of the attendances from this past weekend. We know that 4 teams broke a season high. How does it look for the league? We'll find out. Be sure to follow us at Daily Dive Lax on all social media platforms. That's YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Go there and see daily topics, great segments, all kind of stuff. And more importantly, see our shop. And dare I say, here's the shirt. Now, I will admit, the shirt is not as expected. We might have to do a little bit more tint on the logo here, but it's comfortable. It represents Daily Dive, and it represents growing the game. So go to our social media bios, check out the link tree, and shop at Daily Dive store. Thank you for that so much. Our top story is, of course, the NLL trade deadline 2023 disaster. Now, somebody said on Twitter that in 2018, only one move was made. Well, here's the problem with mentioning 2018 as the year that you want to discuss here. We are on ESPN Plus now. That's the NLL. I'm saying we. The NLL is on ESPN Plus now. The NLL has been on ESPN News a couple times. The NLL has been on ESPN2, I believe, once or twice this year. The NLL is as popular as it's ever been, and for what? I'm not saying every single year a bunch of teams should panic and a bunch of players should get shipped out. But what happened during that trade deadline, to me, was unacceptable. And it shows to me the bigger picture that I've been telling people over and over and over again. The simple fact of the matter is the NLL has an issue, and it's not their fault. It's because of years of complacency, years of not being exposed enough, which is why a show like this hopes to help that. But years of this stuff has been going on where players have Monday through Friday jobs. And until that changes, I'm afraid you cannot make trades as much as you want. Callum Crawford does not want to drive or take an airplane to his home games. That's unacceptable. And again, it's not the league's fault. What's happening here is, like I said, the complacency of the league for years. It has not gotten the exposure it rightfully deserves as box lacrosse for a sport. So my only problem with the trade deadline thing is it's popular, but logistics are such an issue. So when teams ask for a boatload of picks or, some decent young players for a Keegan Ball or somebody like that, they're going to get rejected because it's not worth it. It's not reliable. And it's sad, but that's just the harsh reality of things. It would have been nice to see Saskatchewan make a bigger move than just adding Rhys Duch, who had like 4 good weeks with Colorado. It would have been nice to see, the Seals add another person. I'm kidding. Their offseason was their championship here so far. It would have been nice to see the Rochester Nighthawks add help for Connor Fields, but we just can't get that right now until fans start watching and more money gets involved. That's just simple reality of it. That's the way I see it. It's not a good look. Not from the league perspective, but just from fans. It was anticlimactic. There were some fans that wanted things to happen and nothing happened. Well, a few things. And one of those few things was the Rush, like I said, got Rhys Duch, okay? We're going to give a round of applause that nobody can hear because it's not worth anything. But we're going to talk to Cody Janzen when I come back because I'm hoping he's not going to throw a parade for this, but you never know. Okay, are the Rush faithful or strong? They're alive and well. When we come back, we're talking to Cody Janzen, Saskatchewan Rush. Don't go anywhere. Wednesday is just awesome because that's where we can have Cody Janzen on the Saskatchewan Rush, the play-by-play voice of that whole thing. This is our big guest presented by Fanatics. You can go to Fanatics through our link tree and check out not just the NLL, but all kind of great sports merchandise. Cody Janzen, how are you, sir?
Doing good, Mike. Happy to be here.
Hey, I'm glad someone's happy to be here today because I'm not after the disaster we saw on Monday. But that's okay. But before we get to all that, nice glasses, by the way. Before we get to all that, we're going to get to the Roughnecks game. I know there's a rematch coming up this weekend, but the fact is the team did not win this past weekend. What was it? 13-6 or 11-6, I believe. It's 11-6. A little bit better on paper, but you get it. Cody, what happened?
It was a 6-5 game until, 10 minutes left, right? Like,
Yeah.
It was a defensive battle. We knew it was going to be. And then it kind of starts with the penalty that, maybe considered undisciplined, predictable. The Rush had got a bunch of power plays they didn't capitalize on. And then you knew the refs were going to be looking for one to call in Saskatchewan, and you give them, just a handout. They're going to call you, and Calgary's power play makes you pay, right? They've got so much talent that people don't talk about with the likes of Jesse King, Tyler Pace, Tanner Cook. Like, they actually have a lot of very good players that have developed nicely because they're getting the ball in their stick a lot more with the likes of guys like Curtis Dixon, Dean Dobie, Westberg, Rhys Duch moving on from that, pre-2020 Calgary Roughnecks era. And so they do have some good players. You really can't give them those opportunities. You're down by 1 with 10 minutes to go and you end up losing by 5. I think that just shows that you're right there, but things slipped away from you. And I would go right towards the penalties that cost them.
How big of it do you think that it was Alex Bouquet got off to another slow start? And the offense combined with that back-to-back weeks.
I mean, he allowed 4 in the quarter. That's 16 in the game. If you want to go off of an average, right? Like that's definitely higher than you're going to win with in the league. But also, we bounced back in the second and third quarters. He gave up 2 goals.
Right.
So slow start. I think you kind of brush that out the window when he shuts the door for 30 minutes, right? Like without him, it could be even uglier. Calgary outshot the Rush. I didn't think the Rush had their sharpest game defensively, and Bouquet was the one who made some really big saves, especially in transition on guys like Shane Simpson, Zach Currier, where it could have became, when it was 5-1, 6-1 in that second quarter and they had chances, it could have really become an 8-1, 9-1 game if not for Bouquet in my mind.
Good point. Good little moral victories here, but we're not into those. No. Before we get to what the Rush did, why was the trade deadline so boring this year, for lack of a better term?
What did I tell you? We talked a week or two ago, and I said it's overhyped. I've always been that everyone wants to see a lot more than what happens. And there's a lot of factors. I mean, Brad Challoner tweeted it out too. Is the trade deadline too early? I don't think that's the fact. I don't really think that if you push it back, because then teams might be less motivated to trade for a UFA if they're only going to get them for 4 games versus 6 games, which is kind of the average right about now. So I don't think that's a huge factor. I think this year in particular, and everything I had been hearing before, was just the asking prices were through the roof. I'm going to dive into it on the Rush Hour podcast this week, so I'll throw a shameless plug out there for myself. But again, there's been a lot of information that's gone out. There was a lot of asks. I think there was a lot of tires being kicked. But at the end of the day, if you're a team buying, you're not going to overpay when there's so many teams that, could potentially win. And if you're a seller, you don't want to give up star players for pennies on the dollar. It doesn't matter. I think and the return for Mitch Jones kind of set the precedent too around the league, where you would expect a team like Van, for example, to sell off. But if they think that they're getting first rounders and prospects and, all these type of picks and players for Kyle Killen and Keegan Ball, not too many teams are that interested in it. I mean, Ball's a different situation where he's working for the team, right? Like that's a guy who would have been tough to get out to begin with, but there was the rumblings. And as for others, It just really has to be the right fit. There's got to be two to tango. I know that there was a lot of talk, but at the end of the day, I mean, are you willing to give up 2 first-round picks for a guy who's maybe a firefighter and can't commit to every single game? He's going to have to miss, 4 or 5 a season. It, I don't know. It's such a tough league to make those big deals in.
Agreed.
The people who I feel bad for, and you would have a much better pulse, is the fans of the league, right? Like, I mean, I know you're interacting with them on a daily basis. I know you're talking to them a lot more than me, but there was a lot of excitement. There's a lot of talk and chatter, and maybe because it was teased a ton that the deadline was on Monday, but it seemed like fans were super excited for it. And then you kind of let them down. Again, it's not to dunk on the NLL or anything. It's the best league in the world, but it does suck from a fan's perspective where the league didn't give them anything to really talk about. There was 3 trades, and at the end of the day, I don't think anyone's team changed overly, or no one changed their team drastically. I guess that's probably the best way to put it.
Tread lightly, because the next question is, does Rhys Duch move the needle for you at all? Because it doesn't for me.
Well, here's what I will say is Derek Keenan won the trade deadline day. That's there. I tweeted it out. There was teams that got better on Monday, and there was teams that didn't. Look at what teams got better. I think Saskatchewan got better by adding Rhys Duch, a guy who is motivated to win again. I think that, not that he felt he was done wrong by, the San Diegos, the Halifaxes, but then he goes to Colorado to fill a need where they've got injuries, and he's got 30 plus points in 8 games, and they're kind of like, okay, yeah, you're going on the block, you're disposable, we don't have as many injuries now, we're fine. Like, that pisses off a pro player, right? These guys have pride. This is a guy who's won 2 championships. This is a guy who can still rip the pill. Like, we're talking about a legitimate righty here who Saskatchewan added for a 3rd round pick, could become a 2nd, who knows. But, it's for a very cheap price that Saskatchewan added another offensive threat that teams have to worry about. Teams have to defend. And so that's just going to give more time and space for Robert Church, Dan Lintner, right? Teams don't have to key on them as much. And as a whole, that's going to make your offense better, especially once you can get guys healthy and, back in the lineup at 100%.
I can't wait. The end of the season is going to be wild. Let's pray in a green room for the Saskatchewan Rush, because they are a fan favorite. But thank you so much, Cody Janzen, for taking time out of your busy day. And looking forward to the Rush Hour podcast. Can't lie.
Always a pleasure, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much, Cody. That was Cody Janzen, everybody. Boy, that is fun to get some insight and get some little, humble pie there for myself. Maybe. I mean, it's nice to see what the league is thinking, and not just the fans. It's nice to see what the league is talking about behind the scenes, because sometimes fans are not the smartest people in the world. I'll admit that. When we come back, our last brew, presented by BRS Coffee Company, is going to be Week 16 exact attendances. See, the NLL decides to jump us every week now and trying to get their attendances out there, but they didn't even tell you guys what it was. So let's tell you the exact attendances for every single game, and there were 4 season highs. Pretty good. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Daily Dive here on its March 22nd, 2023. It is time for our last brew, presented by BRS Coffee Company. Search BREZ Coffee Company on social media or online and check out the great flavors. It's made for gamers, by gamers, and of course, athletes and couch potatoes, everyone you can think of. It's Daily Dive promo code at BREZ Coffee Company. Stay awake. You're welcome. All right, who's ready to see the exact numbers of these Week 16 NLL attendances? Well, you're in luck because here they are. Across the bottom of your screen, Calgary with 17,500, Buffalo with 15,500, Halifax almost 10 grand, Vancouver 8,500, Philadelphia 7,840, Rochester under 5,000, New York 4,512, Panthers. Oh my goodness. Woo, that's not good. That is not good. Okay, so this is like the win-lose situation here. Because for the first, what was it? How many attendances we got right here? For the first 4, we get season highs, okay? Calgary, Buffalo, Halifax, and Vancouver. Shout out to those fans for showing up. Now, there are people who did say there's no way there was a bunch of people in Halifax, okay? So I guess Georgia and Halifax are best friends right now in terms of reporting numbers. I did not watch that Halifax game. I may have to tune into that. Buffalo was bussing. Calgary was bussing. Shout out to you folks who had nothing to do on a Saturday, and you chose the cross. Thank you for that. I think one of those games was on a Friday, to be fair. I'm going to check that. But the point aside is this, okay? Those 4 teams, round of applause. Thank you so much. New York, Rochester, Kansas City. What the heck is wrong with these? I genuinely wonder, how is the promotional team that bad? How is the marketing team this bad? What are Texas people doing in Fort Worth on a Saturday? Nothing. I mean, is there something going on in March Madness around Fort Worth area? Maybe I'm missing it. I don't know. I mean, it might sound like me attacking the fans here because they don't want to see it. They don't want to see it. But, like, the marketers have to do better. New York Riptide with 4,512. You guys have Jeff Teed, okay? And you guys have over 10,000 less than the Buffalo Bandits, okay? That just can't happen. Like, darn the size of your arena, you're not promoting your league, your team. You have Jeff Jesus on the crossfield teats. Come on, man. And then Rochester, good Lord. Rochester and Panther City, like Rochester 4,855 is really laughable as well. Because I don't know what Rochester, I've always thought it was the most boring team in the league as far as, maybe Albany. I think Albany and Rochester are both boring teams. But I would just like to know, why are they promoting their teams so badly? And it's not a shot at the PR people. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I'm just like, dude. Like, tell your fans, like, maybe cut ticket sales. I don't know. Like, cut ticket prices, but something's like, give them free T-shirts for crying out loud. I heard Buffalo only had like 75 T-shirts to give out, and there was 15,496 people there, okay? Stuff like that, you have to change. Like, the NLL is on the verge of getting popular, and you can't just piss off these new fans because they may not want to go back. Hey, by the way, shout out to that Vancouver mascot. That thing was cool looking. I ain't going to lie. Sasquatch with a cool 3D looking visor thing. I liked it. As a kid, at first, like, that's kind of scary, but it's not really that scary. I liked it. I forgot what it's called, the Vancouver Warriors mascot. I dig it. They shot in Vancouver, 8,583. According to the NLL site or NLL Twitter page, that's a season high. So they came out for that thing. Hey, I'm not mad at it. Maybe the Riptide, maybe the Riptide need a surfer mascot, like some big beefy surfer thing. Panther City might need a gigantic guy with a panther head. Rochester, I don't know what the heck they need. They need to change their mascot because Nighthawks ain't doing it, man. I'll be honest. They're like some superhero looking dude. I don't know. I mean, granted, when I hear Warrior, I don't think of Sasquatch. Maybe that's gonna be a little fun segment one day, like creating a mascot for every NLL team that doesn't have one. I wouldn't mind it. For the last 4 teams, not the first 4. The first 4 are fine. And Warriors getting a mascot, having low beer prices, seems to be working out. Who cares? As for that trade deadline, listen, okay? I get it. I get where Cody's coming from. But teams have to say dang all that. Like, come on, man. Like, saying Saskatchewan won the trade deadline because you added Rhys Duch for a 3rd rounder. But is that the best Colorado could get for him? Because obviously they were shopping him around. I don't think Saskatchewan just called up. I don't think Saskatchewan called him up and said, hey, you know what's going on here? You take a 3rd rounder for Rhys. Oh, sure. That's not how it went. Teams were calling about that dude, man. Stupid. I give up. I really do. And I hope. I don't know, man. I just hope the fans show up. And I really hope that the trade deadline gets better. I know Cody said it's, people hype it up and maybe it's not anything there, but you want teams to succeed, you got to add pieces to get better, okay? And Rhys Duch being the biggest star that was moved when Keegan Ball and Kyle Killen and Doug Demonson and everybody was right there, and we get the washed-up version of Rhys Duch, it's not good looks. Good league, though. Love this league. Daily Dive Lax on social media, March 22nd, 2023. It's been fun. It's been real. Tomorrow we'll be back with more great insight and fun analysis and a guest. For Cody Janzen, for our wonderful host, Renee Washington, I am Michael Karvelis saying so long. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you tomorrow on Daily Dive. Enjoy the rest of your hump day. Bye.